What if I told you that wanting something is the fastest way to never have it? Sounds crazy, right? But Neville Goddard proved it again and again. The universe is deaf to your wishes. It mirrors only your identity, and who you are right now is the only truth it reflects. Most people spend their lives trapped in a paradox. They think wanting more money, more love, more success is the key to change. But the harder they want, the further it slips away. Neville Goddard shattered this illusion with a truth so uncomfortable, most ignore it. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It mirrors what you are. Think about that. Every desire you chase is secretly telling life, I don't have it yet. And life, like a flawless mirror, simply reflects that back. That's why people pray endlessly, visualize for years, repeat affirmations until they're exhausted, yet nothing changes. Because deep down, their identity remains the same. Here's the shocking part. You don't manifest by effort, by begging or by waiting. You manifest by being. When you assume the wish fulfilled, when you live in the end, when you let feeling be the proof, it's not the world you're convincing, it's yourself. And once you shift inside, reality has no choice but to follow. This isn't theory, it's law. The law of assumption is precise, relentless, and faithful. And in this video, you'll see exactly why Neville insisted. Imagination creates reality, and identity is the magnet. If you've ever felt stuck between wanting and having, what you'll hear today could flip your world upside down in the best way possible. There's a moment when a person suddenly realizes wanting something and being the one who already has it are two different worlds. At first, this feels almost offensive because most of us were raised hearing that wanting is the first step. But Neville Goddard turns this upside down. He shows that the gap between wanting and being is the very reason so many desires remain out of reach. It's not about the wish itself, it's about the state you occupy. Think about it. Wanting says, I don't have it yet. Being says, it's already mine. They might sound similar, but energetically, they are opposites. When someone constantly says they want money, what they're really affirming is that they are broke. When they say they want love, they're saying they're lonely. And life, like a perfect mirror, keeps reflecting exactly that. Neville taught that the law of assumption is always working, whether consciously or unconsciously. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. If the inner self is soaked in lack, lack becomes the outer picture. But if the identity shifts, even slightly, reality bends to match it. This is why wanting often feels like chasing the wind, while being feels like breathing. Imagine a person standing in front of a locked door. Wanting is like knocking endlessly, waiting for someone to open. Being is different. It's as if they already carry the key in their pocket. The door opens naturally without struggle. That's the shock Neville brings to those who are still knockers instead of key holders. The game changes once you realize the key is identity, not effort. Let's take a simple example. A woman says she wants to be healthy. Every day she repeats affirmations, but deep down she identifies as someone always sick. No matter the words, her state screams the opposite. Now imagine instead she assumes the identity of health itself. She walks, eats, and speaks like one already well. That shift, silent but radical, is the line between wanting and being. Parents often told us, study hard, and one day you'll become successful. Notice the subtle poison. Success was always out there, delayed, distant. We internalized that wanting was noble, but being was arrogant. Neville flips this narrative, saying, humility isn't denying what's already true within. It's assuming the wish fulfilled and resting in that identity. It's radical but liberating. Think about money again. People say, I want financial freedom. But what do they imagine? Bills piling up, stress, chasing opportunities. Their subconscious keeps rehearsing scarcity. Now compare it to someone who lives in the end. They feel, walk, and sleep like someone already free. That person radiates a different frequency. One state attracts more lack, the other attracts abundance effortlessly. Neville's brilliance was showing that imagination creates reality. Not someday, now. To imagine yourself as the one who already has it is to step into being. To imagine yourself only wanting is to deepen the lack. And here lies the shock. Many people are unknowingly reinforcing their unwanted identity, praying from a place of emptiness rather than fullness. It's like watering a plant versus talking about how thirsty it is. The plant doesn't grow because you describe its thirst. It grows when you give it water. Similarly, your reality doesn't change because you keep talking about what you want. It changes when you feed it with the state of already being. Wanting is commentary, being is creation. And that's where the turning point begins, understanding that wanting is a confession of absence, while being is the proclamation of identity. Neville Goddard would say, "Dare to assume. That daring leap is the bridge from desire to manifestation." Now, if wanting keeps us stuck, why exactly does it never work the way we think it should? Wanting feels innocent, even motivating. We grow up hearing phrases like, "You have to want it badly enough." But in Neville Goddard's perspective, wanting is a trap. Why? Because wanting announces to the subconscious, "I don't have it yet." And the subconscious doesn't argue, it simply reflects. So the more someone wants, the more they affirm lack. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and saying, "I want to be taller." The reflection doesn't change just because of the wish. The mirror keeps showing what already is. Life works the same way. Reality is just a mirror of the inner state. When the state is wanting, the reflection will always show not yet. That's why wanting never produces the breakthrough. Think about relationships. A person says, "I want love." They repeat it like a mantra, but each time they're emphasizing loneliness. Their subconscious hears, "I'm alone, I'm missing something." And what does reality deliver? More situations to confirm aloneness. The universe gives what you are, not what you want. That's why longing only multiplies the sense of longing. Neville called this the law of assumption in action. The outer world must match the assumption held within. So if the assumption is, "I'm still waiting," the outer world must deliver scenarios where waiting continues. It's not punishment, it's simply a law, as precise as gravity. People keep wanting and waiting, never realizing they're reinforcing the very delay they hate. Picture a man who wants money. Every day he declares, "I want to be rich." Yet he still identifies as broke, struggling, desperate. His subconscious isn't listening to the words, it's listening to the feeling. The feeling screams lack. That's why, year after year, nothing changes. He's rehearsing scarcity, not embodying abundance. And the mirror can only reflect what's inside. Wanting is like being stuck at the starting line of a race, talking about how much you want to cross the finish. The gun has already fired, but you haven't moved. Being is different. Being is running with the confidence that the finish line is already yours. Neville taught that the shift is mental first. The outer race only reflects what's already been claimed within. People often confuse effort with transformation. They think wanting plus effort equals manifestation, but effort without identity is exhausting. It's like rowing upstream while the current pulls against you. The subconscious, operating from "I want," keeps returning to the same lack-based state. Real change begins only when the feeling flips into "I am." Neville's phrase feeling is, "The secret reveals why wanting is powerless." Feeling lack creates more lack, no matter how pretty the words. Someone may say, "I want to be confident," but if they feel small and insecure, life confirms that. It's not the vocabulary, it's the vibration. That's why affirmation without assumption can feel hollow. Wanting also keeps people future-focused. They live in tomorrow, always chasing, never resting. But the law of assumption only works in the present moment. You can't want today and expect to be tomorrow. You must live in the end now, assume the wish fulfilled now, and feel it real now. Otherwise, the desire remains an eternal carrot on a stick. This is the paradox Neville uncovers. The harder you want, the further it feels. Wanting is a confession of lack disguised as hope. Being, however, is a silent knowing that doesn't beg. It simply is. And when that identity settles in, reality shifts in ways that feel almost magical, which brings us to the deeper truth. If wanting never works, what exactly does reality respond to? Neville Goddard was crystal clear. Reality doesn't answer requests, it answers states. People can pray, beg, or repeat affirmations endlessly, but if their inner state is "I don't have it," life echoes that state. The universe gives what you are, not what you want. This is the unshakable foundation of the law of assumption. Think about how people often treat life as if it were a waiter. They order things, success, love, money, but the universe isn't a waiter. It's a mirror. It doesn't take your request, it takes your reflection. The state you embody, consciously or unconsciously, is the order. That's why Neville insisted identity manifestation is the only real manifestation. Picture a man who prays for a job. His words ask for opportunity, but his inner state is fear and unworthiness. What does life reflect? More closed doors, more rejection, more waiting. The words were hopeful, but the state was lack. That's why Neville would say, don't beg from the state of not having. Assume the wish fulfilled instead. The subconscious doesn't care about logic. It isn't moved by good arguments or fancy vocabulary. It only absorbs the feeling of being. If the feeling is, I am lacking, then lack multiplies. If the feeling is, I am already provided for, then provision flows. Feeling is the secret because feeling is the only language the subconscious understands. Look at everyday examples. A woman identifies as unlucky in love. Even when someone shows genuine interest, she pushes them away or sabotages the connection. Why? Because her state rejects love before it even arrives. Contrast that with someone who identifies as lovable. Their energy opens doors, attracts smiles, and makes relationships flourish naturally. Neville's law is relentless. It doesn't bend to effort or struggle. It bends to state. That's why chasing things often feels exhausting. The outer chase is meaningless if the inner self hasn't shifted. When the state changes, the chase is no longer necessary. Life rearranges itself, sometimes in ways that seem like coincidences, but aren't. Imagine someone who constantly says, I'm trying to save money. Their state is always trying, never already abundant. So bills keep showing up, emergencies keep draining the account. It's not bad luck, it's the mirror of their state. But when the identity shifts to I am secure, I am provided for, life finds surprising ways to confirm it. That's why Neville emphasized living in the end. The end isn't about someday, it's about now. To live in the end is to occupy the state of fulfillment before evidence. It's to rest in the feeling of done, while the outer world catches up. The longer you persist in that state, the faster the mirror reflects it back. And here's the liberating part. Anyone can shift state instantly. You don't need a ritual, a guru, or a perfect plan. You need imagination. Close your eyes, assume the wish fulfilled, and feel it real. That's the lever that moves the world. Imagination creates reality because it creates state, and state creates everything else. Once this law clicks, life feels less like chaos and more like precision. You stop asking, why isn't it working? And start asking, what state am I in? That one question changes everything. Because if manifestation isn't about effort, but about state, then identity is the magnet pulling everything in. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Neville Goddard always returned to this central truth. Manifestation flows from identity, not effort. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And what you are is nothing more than the state you consistently occupy. Identity acts like a magnet, pulling in experiences that match its frequency with mathematical precision. Think of someone who identifies as always struggling. Even when opportunities appear, they find a way to block or sabotage them. Why? Because their magnet is set to struggle. Meanwhile, another person with the identity of I am prosperous walks into the same room and suddenly finds doors opening. Same room, different magnet. Parents, teachers, and society unknowingly program these magnets early. Money doesn't grow on trees. Life is hard. You're just like your uncle, always broke. These words sink into identity and harden into a self-image. And unless questioned, that magnet keeps attracting the same recycled reality, no matter how much someone wants change. A practical example. Imagine two salespeople. One identifies as convincing, successful, worthy. The other identifies as nervous, bad with people. Same product, same script, but radically different outcomes. Why? Because the first one magnetizes trust, while the second one repels it. Identity is the hidden force deciding the result before the conversation even begins. That's why Neville insisted that imagination creates reality. The imagination isn't just for dreaming, it's for forming identity. When someone imagines themselves as already successful, already loved, already free, they install a new magnet, and life faithfully organizes itself around that magnet, bringing circumstances, people, and events into harmony with the assumed self. Notice how this plays out in daily life. A woman identifies as the single friend. Every family gathering, every conversation, she reinforces it, and reality echoes it back. But the moment she dares to live in the end, feeling like a beloved partner, the magnet flips. Suddenly, the same world starts reflecting a new role she quietly assumed. Identity doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for external validation. The moment you accept a new self-concept, the magnet is set. Outer evidence may take time to catch up, but the shift is already real. And this is where many trip. They keep peeking at the old reflection instead of trusting the new magnet they just installed. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you keep your dial on Lack FM, you'll only hear scarcity songs. If you switch to Abundance FM, the broadcast changes instantly. The airwaves didn't change. You did. Identity is the dial, and life can only play the station you're tuned into. The law of assumption works through identity because identity is lived feeling. Words without identity are empty, but when the feeling is real, when you embody the one who already has it, then the magnet becomes unstoppable. This is why Neville urged people to assume the wish fulfilled, not as a fantasy, but as a new self they dare to wear. So the question isn't what do I want, but who am I being? Because being is the magnet, and the magnet never fails. Once that clicks, it's natural to ask, how does one know when the new identity has really taken root? Neville gave us the answer. The proof isn't in words, it's in feeling. Neville Goddard didn't mince words. Feeling is the secret. Not the words you repeat, not the prayers you say, not the affirmations you shout into the air. The true evidence of identity is how you feel right now. Feeling is the invisible stamp that tells your subconscious, this is who I am, and reality faithfully echoes it. Think of someone repeating, I am confident, while trembling inside. The words say one thing, but the feeling screams another. Guess which one the subconscious obeys? Always the feeling. That's why Neville urged, don't focus on saying it, focus on feeling it. When the feeling shifts, the state shifts. And when the state shifts, reality must follow. Imagine a woman who wants financial freedom. She tells herself daily, I am abundant. But deep down she still feels the sting of bills, the fear of not making rent. That inner vibration cancels out the words. But the moment she truly rests in the feeling of already being free, walking lighter, breathing deeper, her state aligns with abundance itself. Feeling is the doorway between imagination and reality. You can imagine the most beautiful scenes, but unless they generate a genuine shift in feeling, they remain daydreams. The law of assumption isn't about fantasy. It's about embodiment. When the body and heart join the vision, the subconscious accepts it as real, and the mirror of life adjusts. Let's use a simple analogy. Electricity. You can wire the house, install the bulbs, set everything in place. But until the switch is flipped, no light shines. Imagination sets the wiring. Identity installs the bulbs. Feeling flips the switch. Without it, the system is dead. With it, the whole house lights up instantly. Neville often said to assume the wish fulfilled and feel it real. Notice the emphasis. Feel it real, because imagination without feeling is just a picture, but imagination with feeling is a living reality in consciousness. And once it's alive within, it becomes law that the outer world will catch up in time and in form. Feeling is also the proof because it changes behavior naturally. A person who feels abundant walks differently. They don't obsess over pennies. They don't shrink when bills arrive. They radiate calm. That inner calm is the echo of the new identity, and life responds with confirmations that match the quiet certainty they carry. This is why Neville said, the universe gives what you are. Being is felt, not declared. If you want love but feel unworthy, you'll repel it. If you want success but feel small, you'll sabotage it. But if you dare to feel the wish fulfilled, without needing external evidence, you've already crossed the line from wanting into being. Feeling is subtle but powerful. It doesn't require fireworks or extreme emotion. Sometimes it's as gentle as relief, gratitude, or quiet knowing. That soft inner yes is stronger than 1,000 loud affirmations, because in that moment, the subconscious registers the new identity as real. And once it's real within, it cannot be denied without. So if you ever wonder whether you've truly assumed a new state, don't check your words. Check your feeling. The inner barometer never lies. And when the feeling settles in, you'll notice a shift. Less chasing, less forcing, more resting. That's when you know the seed has been planted. But if feeling is the proof, why do so many still chase outcomes outside themselves? One of Neville Goddard's sharpest insights was that chasing outcomes keeps you stuck. The more you run after results outside yourself, the more you affirm separation from them. It feels logical. After all, the world tells us to go get it. But spiritually, it's a trap, because by chasing, you declare, it isn't mine yet. Think of someone running after a shadow. The faster they chase, the faster it escapes. That's exactly what happens with manifestation when the focus is on external proof. Life mirrors the state. not the chase. And if the state is lack, then every pursuit only deepens the sense of absence. Money is a clear example. A person obsesses over making more, working longer hours, forcing opportunities. But beneath it all, they identify as someone who doesn't have enough. That identity magnetizes more lack. Regardless of how much action they take, the harder they run, the drier the well feels. Relationships show the same pattern. Someone constantly looks for signs that love is coming. They chase validation, read meanings into texts, stalk social media for confirmation. But all that behavior screams, "I'm still waiting," and reality responds faithfully, delivering more waiting, more delay, more longing. Chasing outcomes also drains peace. Instead of resting in the identity of already having, the person lives in constant tension. They check the bank account daily, hoping for a miracle. They scan the phone, waiting for that call. The outer chase becomes a prison of expectation, where joy is always postponed until someday. Neville's teaching flips this around. Stop chasing. Start assuming. Live in the end now. When you occupy the state of the one who already has it, the chase ends. You no longer run after shadows, you stand still and the shadow aligns with you, because reality bends to being, not to begging. A simple analogy. Imagine planting a seed. If you dig it up every day to check if it's growing, you kill it. Chasing outcomes is the same. Constantly checking, doubting, and forcing interrupts the process. But if you trust the seed, water it, and let it be, growth is inevitable. So it is with assumptions. Neville often reminded us, imagination creates reality, but imagination used for chasing is wasted energy. True imagination is assuming the wish fulfilled and resting in the feeling of already having. When that state settles, external results flow naturally, without strain. Chasing ends where being begins. And here's the paradox. The less you chase, the more things chase you. When you embody abundance, opportunities knock on your door. When you embody love, connections flow to you. It feels effortless, not because nothing is happening, but because identity is the magnet doing all the work. That's why Neville's students often said manifestation felt magical. It wasn't magic, it was alignment. They stopped running outside and turned inward to identity. From there, everything else followed. So if chasing separates, what actually unites you with your desire? The answer lies in assuming the identity now. Neville Goddard gave us a simple but revolutionary practice. Assume the identity of the one who already has what you desire. Don't wait for proof, don't chase signs, be it now. The technique isn't about long rituals or complicated steps. It's about imagination and feeling. That's where true creation begins. Start with a short, simple scene. Neville always emphasized brevity. Don't imagine a 2-hour movie. Imagine a 5-second clip that implies your desire fulfilled. For example, shaking a friend's hand as they congratulate you, or seeing your name on a bank statement with the amount you wanted. The power is in the implication, not in the detail. Step into the scene in first person. Don't watch yourself as an outsider. Be inside your own body. Feel the handshake, hear the words, notice the environment. Let the scene be as vivid as possible. The subconscious accepts what you experience in imagination as real, so long as it feels real. Feeling is the anchor. If the scene doesn't stir emotion, it won't stick. Let gratitude, joy, relief, or peace rise naturally. You don't need to force it. Just lean into the sense that it's already done. That emotional shift is what signals the subconscious. This is my new identity. A practical example. Someone desiring love might imagine slipping a wedding ring on their finger, feeling its weight, and hearing the simple phrase, "I do." Someone desiring financial freedom might imagine sitting at a table, casually paying bills without stress, smiling as they close the laptop. Short, powerful, emotional. Neville often said to practice this in a drowsy, relaxed state. Just before sleep, when the conscious mind softens, the subconscious is most impressionable. That's when the seed of assumption takes root. It's not about effort, it's about sinking into the identity of already being. The state before sleep is a doorway. Don't confuse this with visualization, as most people teach it. Visualization can become a wishful fantasy, keeping the desire distant. Assumption, however, is identification. You're not pretending, you're being. That distinction makes all the difference. It's not about seeing it happen, it's about being the one for whom it has already happened. Some worry about how it will come. Neville was firm. Leave the bridge of incidents to life. Your job is not to figure out the route, It's to rest in the end. The universe rearranges itself to match your state. That's why imagination creates reality, not by controlling the path, but by embodying the destination. This practice may feel strange at first. Old identity habits resist. Doubts whisper, but it's not true yet. That's normal, persist anyway. Each time you assume the wish fulfilled, you're carving a new groove in the subconscious. Over time, it becomes natural, and the old identity loses its grip. Once assumption becomes natural, life reflects it automatically. Circumstances shift, people respond differently, opportunities appear without struggle. You realize that you never had to chase, only assume. And when you live this way, subtle signs begin to confirm your new identity. Which brings us to the next step. How do you recognize those signs within yourself? How can someone know if they've truly shifted identity? Neville Goddard said, "The proof isn't outside, it's inside." The first sign is inner calm. When you really assume the wish fulfilled, you stop obsessing about when or how. There's a quiet certainty, like knowing the sun will rise tomorrow. That calmness is evidence of being. Gratitude before evidence is another sign. Most people wait until they see results to feel thankful, but when you've already assumed the state, gratitude flows naturally before the outer world confirms it. You feel grateful not because something happened, but because in consciousness it's already done. Gratitude is identity in action. You also notice less obsession. Before, the desire consumed every thought, but once you embody it, you no longer chase or check constantly. It's like moving into a new home. You don't keep asking if you live there, you just live there. The desire becomes background because being doesn't require proof. Another sign is that outer confirmations begin to appear effortlessly. A casual comment, a synchronicity, an opportunity landing in your lap. These aren't signs to keep waiting. They're echoes of the identity you already assumed. Life starts playing along with the inner shift, sometimes in subtle whispers, sometimes in loud shouts. Relationships also respond. When someone assumes the identity of being loved, they notice people treating them differently. Smiles, warmth, invitations. Nothing magical happened. The magnet of identity simply changed. Others can sense it, often without knowing why. The outer world bends to the new vibration. A powerful sign is freedom from envy. When you live in lack, someone else's success feels threatening. But when you live in the end, another's abundance only confirms your own. You stop comparing, stop competing. You rest in the knowing I already am. That piece of identity dissolves jealousy at the root. Even language shifts naturally. You stop saying I want and start saying I am. Not because you're forcing affirmations, but because your vocabulary mirrors your state. For example, instead of I hope I'll travel, you catch yourself saying, when I travel, the future tense becomes a matter-of-fact expectation. Another indicator. Your body responds. Stress loosens, breath deepens, sleep comes easier. When the inner conflict of wanting versus being dissolves, the body rests. Health improves not because of external change, but because identity no longer broadcasts lack. The body simply reflects the peace of being. Here's the paradox. Even though evidence isn't fully visible yet, you feel lighter. The burden of chasing falls away. You notice joy in simple things, as if life itself is confirming your shift. And those small joys compound into bigger confirmations. The mirror is starting to catch up. These signs don't mean the journey is over. They mean the new state is taking root. The key now is persistence. Because even as the outer world lags behind, the identity must remain steady. Which leads us directly to the next step. How do you persist in identity until reality has no choice but to conform? Neville Goddard taught that persistence is the glue that holds the new identity in place until the world reflects it. Most people assume once is enough. They imagine once, feel good for a moment, then check the mirror of life. But when nothing happens instantly, they drop back into lack. Persistence is what prevents this back and forth spiral. Think of it like baking bread. You don't take it out of the oven halfway just because you don't see results yet. You trust the process, even when the dough looks unchanged. Identity works the same way. You must hold the state long enough for it to solidify, regardless of appearances. Reality needs time to catch up. Persistence doesn't mean strain. It isn't forcing yourself to feel happy 24/7. It's choosing again and again to return to the state of already having. When doubts creep in, you redirect. When fear knocks, you remind yourself, no, I live in the end. This gentle but consistent return builds an unshakable identity. Outer circumstances will often test you. Bills may come, delays may appear, people may doubt you. This is when most collapse back into old states. But Neville urged, see these not as failures but as opportunities to persist. Each test is simply life asking, who are you now? And your answer must remain, I am the one who already has it. Imagine someone who assumes the identity of wealth. A surprise expense arrives. Old self panics, saying, see, I'm still broke. New self says, even with this, I remain abundant. That choice to persist, despite contradiction, is what bends reality. Persistence rewrites the script until life has no option but to follow. Neville often quoted, man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, and we in him. Persistence is living that truth, refusing to bow to temporary appearances. It's holding the inner vision as superior to the outer fact, and eventually fact surrenders to faith. A helpful technique is revisiting your short imaginal scene often, morning, night, or any time doubts arise. Replay it with feeling, not as desperate wishing, but as quiet confirmation. This keeps the new identity alive and active. Each replay deepens the groove until the old self fades like an unused path in the forest. Persistence also means refusing to measure progress by time. The outer world operates on delay, but consciousness operates instantly. The seed is planted the moment you assume. Time is just the space required for the harvest. Doubt grows when you stare at the clock. Faith grows when you rest in the knowing. Think of persistence as building muscle. At first, the old self feels stronger, but with repetition, the new identity gains power. Eventually, it becomes effortless. It's simply who you are. And by then, the mirror of life has no choice but to reflect the new strength outwardly. This is the empowering beauty of Neville's teaching. Persistence guarantees conformity. Reality cannot resist the identity you consistently embody. The law of assumption has no exceptions. And once you see this truth, the final realization dawns. You never get what you want. You only ever get what you are. At the heart of Neville Goddard's teaching lies a truth both simple and shocking. You never get what you want. You only ever get what you are. This isn't poetry. It's law. The universe doesn't take orders like a waiter. It mirrors your identity, and the state you embody determines every reflection you see. That means desire alone is powerless. Wanting without being is empty. But when you dare to assume the wish fulfilled, when you live in the end, something extraordinary happens. Life bends around your state. Doors open, coincidences pile up, people respond differently. Not because you begged, but because you became. This realization is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it forces you to stop blaming luck, fate, or circumstances. Empowering because it hands the steering wheel back to you. If imagination creates reality, then your inner world is the blueprint, and the outer must follow, without exception. Think of the times you lived from lack. Money slipping away, love unreturned, opportunities missed. It wasn't punishment. It was simply identity mirrored back. Now think of the moments you felt abundant, loved, unstoppable. Didn't life respond differently? That wasn't coincidence. It was the law of assumption at work. Feeling is the secret, because feeling is being. Words can lie, effort can fail, but feeling never deceives. When you feel yourself into a new identity, reality has no choice but to align. It might not happen overnight, but persistence guarantees conformity. The mirror is faithful, always. This is why Neville urged his students to stop waiting for signs. You are the sign. The shift in state is the evidence. Outer proof is just the echo, not the source. When you grasp this, you stop living as a beggar at life's door and start living as the author of your own script. Imagine how freeing it is to know that nothing is truly out there against you. No economy, no boss, no partner determines your destiny. Your inner state does. Change the self-concept, and the world must change with it. That is the empowering truth. Life is your mirror, not your master. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop desperately wanting and start being, life feels lighter. Peace replaces panic. Gratitude replaces fear. You realize you don't have to force anything. The state itself does the work. You assume, you feel, you persist, and reality follows faithfully, inevitably. This is why Neville's message remains timeless. He wasn't teaching fantasy. He was teaching precision. Live in the end. Assume the wish fulfilled. Embody the identity now. The universe gives what you are. That's not opinion, it's law. And once you know this, the only question left is, who are you willing to be? Because everything rests on that choice. Not what you want, but what you are. The magnet of identity shapes the mirror of reality. And when you truly see this, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a canvas. The empowering truth is simple. Shift the state, and life must shift with you. So now the question is no longer what do I want, but who am I being? Because the universe doesn't hand out desires like prizes. It mirrors identity. And your life today is the perfect reflection of the state you've most consistently occupied. That's the empowering truth Neville Goddard left us with. Change the state, and life has no choice but to change with you. Take a moment and ask yourself, what identity have I been living from? Scarcity or abundance? Loneliness or love? Fear or confidence? These aren't abstract questions, they are the blueprint of your reality. And the moment you dare to assume a new self, the mirror begins to shift. This isn't about forcing or chasing. It's about resting in the end, feeling the wish fulfilled, and persisting until the world catches up. It always will, because imagination creates reality, and your state is the seed of every outcome. So tonight before you sleep, test it. Close your eyes, step into the identity of the one who already has what you've been chasing, and feel it real. Then persist. Life will surprise you. And if you want to keep learning how to master this law, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every new video will guide you deeper into Neville's wisdom, so you can stop wanting and finally start being.